I was having dinner with my daughter and her new husband at one of Seattle's most expensive restaurants, celebrating their honeymoon, when he stepped outside to take a business call. Moments later, an elderly man approached our table, terror written across his face. He slipped a folded note into my hand and whispered, "Your daughter's in danger. Get her out. Now." I didn't know who he truly was, or how dangerous the man my daughter had married might be. But something in that stranger's voice cut through every doubt. And when you're a father, you don't ignore that feeling. So I chose to listen. That decision saved both our lives. Before we go any further, I want to say thank you for being here. It truly means a lot. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what the temperature is like where you are right now. I love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. Just so you know, this story includes some fictionalized elements woven in for impact and insight. Any similarity to real individuals or settings is purely coincidental. But the message I'm sharing with you, that part, is meant to stay with you. It was a crisp October evening in 2024 when my world changed forever. I'd spent 28 years building homes across Seattle, teaching myself that stability comes from solid foundations and careful planning. Every beam I've placed, every wall I've framed, I've done with the certainty that proper structure keeps people safe. I thought I understood how to build a secure life for my family. Turns out, I didn't understand the first thing about the dangers that could walk right through your front door wearing a perfect smile. The restaurant was one of those places where the silverware costs more than my first truck. All soft lighting, exposed brick, and hushed conversations punctuated by the gentle clink of wine glasses. The kind of upscale Seattle spot where the city's professionals celebrate milestones over $30 appetizers. Emma had picked it, wanting to mark the end of her honeymoon properly. My daughter's always had excellent taste, inherited that from her mother. 3 weeks into her marriage to Ryan Mitchell, Emma was glowing in a way I hadn't seen since before my wife Sarah passed 5 years ago. That glow was everything I'd hoped for when I walked her down the aisle. Everything a father wants his daughter happy, settled, loved. So why couldn't I shake this knot in my gut? "Dad, you're doing it again," Emma said, catching me studying Ryan across the candlelit table. Her laugh was warm, teasing. Doing what? I tried for innocence. The contractor's stare, like you're checking if he's structurally sound. She squeezed Ryan's hand. "He's not one of your buildings, Dad." Ryan flashed that easy smile of his, the one that had charmed my daughter through a whirlwind 6-month courtship. "It's all right, Emma. Your dad's protective. I respect that." He raised his wine glass toward me. "Bob, I promise I'm up to code. Foundation's solid." Everyone laughed. I joined in, but that nagging feeling wouldn't quit. 6 months from first date to wedding. Everything had moved so fast, like a project with an impossible deadline. And Ryan had insisted on handling all the paperwork, the marriage license, the bank accounts, the insurance updates. Said he wanted to make it easy for Emma, didn't want her stressed with legal details. She'd signed everything he'd put in front of her, trusting him completely. That's what love does, I suppose. Makes you trust. Emma was describing their honeymoon cabin near Mount Rainier, her eyes bright with the memory when Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and something flickered across his face just for a heartbeat, like a crack appearing in smooth drywall. "I'm so sorry, honey," he said, already standing. "It's the Henderson account. I really need to take this." On a Friday night, Emma's disappointment was gentle understanding. That's my girl, always accommodating, always kind. Real estate never sleeps. Ryan kissed the top of her head. 2 minutes, I promise." I watched him weave through tables toward the entrance phone already pressed to his ear. The moment he stepped outside into the October drizzle, I felt it, that sensation of being watched. An elderly man at the adjacent table had been sitting alone since we'd arrived, barely touching his soup. I'd noticed him peripherally. You notice things when you've got a daughter. Silver hair, worn cardigan hands that trembled as they gripped a folded piece of paper. And he was staring at Emma with an intensity that made every protective instinct I had flare to life. The old man moved before I could react. He crossed between our tables with surprising speed, his movements urgent despite his age. I tensed, half rising from my seat, but he wasn't looking at Emma anymore. His eyes locked onto mine, and what I saw there stopped me cold. Terror. Pure, desperate terror. His hand shot out and grabbed mine where it rested on the table. His grip was ice cold and surprisingly strong. Before I could pull away, he pressed the folded paper into my palm, his fingers trembling against mine. Your daughter." He whispered, his voice barely audible over the restaurant's ambient noise. His eyes darted toward the entrance where Ryan stood visible through the glass. "Read this. When he comes back, you need to be gone." "What are you talking about?" I started, but he was already pulling away. "A father always knows," he said louder, now urgent. "Trust that feeling in your gut. Trust it." Then he was shuffling toward the exit, head down, moving like a man who'd just delivered a message he'd been terrified to give. Dad." Emma's voice cut through my shock. "What was that about? Do you know him?" I stared at the paper burning in my palm. Through the windows, I could see Ryan wrapping up his call, starting to turn back toward the entrance. Maybe 30 seconds before he'd be at our table. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper beneath the tablecloth, hidden from Emma's view. The handwriting was shaky, but legible, written in blue ink. "Your daughter is in terrible danger. The man she married has ended lives before 3 women that I know of. He marries them, takes everything. Then they die in accidents. Check her bank accounts. Check her insurance policies. Check everything he's had her sign. They move fast once they start. There's an address below. Come tonight if you want the truth. Please, I'm begging you, get her away from him, now." Below the message, an address in southeast Seattle. My blood turned to ice. Dad. Emma's concern was real now. "You look pale. Are you okay?" I looked up at her. My daughter, my only child, the person I'd protected from every danger I could imagine since the day she was born. She was smiling at me, that same trusting expression she'd had at 5 when I'd taught her to ride a bike. 3 women. They die in accidents. Outside, Ryan was pocketing his phone, straightening his jacket, that practiced smile sliding back into place as he reached for the door. The paper weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. 28 years in construction had taught me to recognize when a structure was about to fail, that moment, when everything looks fine, but every instinct screams danger. This was that moment. I looked at Emma's trusting face, then at Ryan returning through the crowd, his smile perfect and practiced. Every instinct I'd honed over 58 years told me we had seconds, not minutes. Sometimes a father just knows. I made my choice. The moment Ryan disappeared through that glass door, the clock in my head started ticking. 60 seconds, maybe less, before he'd finish his call and turn around. 60 seconds to convince my daughter to abandon her honeymoon dinner and trust a father's instinct over everything her heart was telling her. I didn't have time for subtlety. "Emma," I said, my voice cutting through her thoughts about the dessert menu. "We need to leave. Right now." She blinked, her smile faltering. "What, Dad? We haven't even..." "Now, sweetheart." I was already standing, pulling cash from my wallet and tossing it on the table. "We're going." "Dad, what's going on? Are you sick?" Through the window, Ryan's silhouette shifted under the streetlights. He angled back toward the entrance. 30 seconds, maybe less. I leaned across the table. "Emma, do you trust me?" She stared at me. "Dad, you're scaring me." I know, I'm sorry. But answer me. Do you trust me? Something in my voice made her really look at me. I watched memories flicker behind her eyes, every promise I'd kept, every nightmare I'd chased away. She nodded slowly. Yes, always. Then stand up and follow me. No questions. Not here. She glanced toward Ryan outside, then back at me. Confusion battled loyalty. But my daughter has never gone back on her word. Okay, she whispered, reaching for her purse. I scanned the restaurant mapping exits. Walking out the front wouldn't work. Ryan would see us the moment he turned around. I needed distraction. I needed movement. I needed chaos. There it was, the red handle near the restrooms. Fire alarm. 28 years in construction meant I knew the consequences. False alarm. Fines. Maybe worse. But my daughter's life was folded in the paper inside my pocket. Sometimes being a good father means breaking the law. Stay close, I said, gripping her hand. Dad, what are you? I didn't answer. I pulled her toward the wall. A waiter tried to stop me, but I was already there, my hand wrapped around the cold metal. For half a heartbeat, I hesitated. Then I pulled. The alarm exploded into sound, piercing, relentless. Strobes flashed, turning the elegant dining room into a stuttering nightmare of light and noise. For 1 second, everyone froze. Then panic. Chairs scraped. Glass shattered. People surged toward the exits in a single desperate wave. Beautiful chaos. I pulled Emma into the flow, shielding her with my body, steering us toward the glowing green exit sign over the emergency door. Dad, she shouted. What did you do? Saving your life, I yelled back. We hit the crash bar together and stumbled into the October drizzle. The alley behind the restaurant was narrow and dark, lit only by a flickering security light. The exit alarm joined the symphony, echoing against brick walls. Rain soaked us instantly. Emma stood there, breathing hard, eyes wide. Dad, she whispered. What is happening? Before I could answer, heavy footsteps pounded behind us. Emma, Ryan. I pulled her into the shadows beside a dumpster and pressed a finger to my lips. Through the open door, Ryan's silhouette appeared backlit by flashing lights. He stepped into the alley phone flashlight slicing through the rain. Emma, louder now. Baby, where are you? The front of the restaurant must have been chaos, fire trucks evacuating diners, but he'd come to the back. How did he know? Emma trembled beside me. I felt her wanting to call out to fix this. I tightened my grip and shook my head. Ryan stepped farther into the alley. The flickering light caught his face. The worried husband was gone. What replaced it was cold and focused. His eyes swept the alley with predator calm. When they passed over us, I stopped breathing. 3 heartbeats. Then his phone rang. He swore and answered. What? No, I'm looking for them. I don't know, she just disappeared. Yes, with her father. The alarm went off. I'll find them. Give me a minute. His voice moved back toward the door. I waited 30 seconds, then pulled Emma from hiding. We moved quickly toward the far end of the alley. My truck was parked a block away. We reached the side street and I glanced back. Through the rain and flashing lights, Ryan pushed through the crowd, out front, scanning faces. For a second, his eyes swept our direction, and his face, God, the charm was gone. The warmth, the easy smile, the perfect son-in-law mask erased. In its place was something colder, patient, calculating. A man adjusting strategy after losing control of the board. Something that told me the old man's warning hadn't been paranoia. It had been survival. Emma followed my gaze and saw him too. Dad, she breathed. And this time there was no doubt in her voice. What did he do? I didn't answer immediately. The paper in my pocket felt heavier than steel. Not what he did, I said quietly. What he was planning. Her fingers tightened around mine as another fire truck roared past. Blue and red lights painted the street in violent color. He said he loved me, she whispered. I know. And you're saying... I'm saying we don't go back, I cut in. Not tonight. Not until I show you something. Behind us, Ryan turned in a slow circle, searching. His phone was back at his ear. His movements were controlled, not frantic. A hunter who knew his prey was close. My pulse hammered, but my mind was clear. He wasn't panicking. He was recalculating. Truck, I said. We moved. Fast, but not running. Running draws eyes. When we reached it, I unlocked the doors and ushered her inside. Rain drummed on the roof as I started the engine. Across the intersection, Ryan stepped off the curb, scanning the line of parked vehicles. For one terrible second, his gaze paused on my truck. Then another siren wailed, and a cluster of diners rushed between us, breaking his line of sight. I pulled into traffic. In the rearview mirror, I watched him shrink in the storm of lights and sirens. He stood still in the chaos, phone pressed to his ear face, expressionless. Waiting, planning. Emma stared straight ahead. Silent now, the trust she'd given me settling like armor around us both. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Whatever game Ryan thought he was playing, he'd just learned something important. I wasn't an old man imagining threats and shadows. I was a father who'd seen the predator behind the smile, and I was done pretending I hadn't. My living room should have felt safe. Instead, every shadow seemed to hold a threat I couldn't name yet. We'd driven in silence, Emma staring out the rain-streaked window, while my mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. I'd checked the rearview mirror every 30 seconds, watching for headlights that followed too closely, turns that matched ours. Nothing. But that didn't mean we weren't being watched. The house was dark when we pulled up, just like I'd left it that morning, when the biggest worry in my life was finishing the Henderson project on schedule. That felt like a lifetime ago now. Emma followed me inside without a word. I locked the door behind us, threw the deadbolt, checked the windows. Old habits from when she was little, when checking locks was just part of being a dad. Now it felt like preparation for siege. "Dad," Emma said quietly, standing in the middle of the living room in her soaked dress, mascara smudged under her eyes. "I need you to tell me what's happening. Right now." "Fair enough." I pulled out the crumpled paper from my pocket, smoothed it on the coffee table under the lamp. We'd both read it at the restaurant, but there was more here than just the warning. Details I hadn't fully processed in those desperate seconds before everything went sideways. "Look at this," I said, pointing to the address scrawled at the bottom. "Southeast Seattle. Someone wants us to go there." "Who was that man, Dad? Why did he—" Her phone buzzed on the coffee table where she'd set it down. Ryan's name lit up the screen. His photo smiling up at us, that engagement photo from 6 months ago, when everything had seemed so perfect. Emma reached for it. "Don't," I said. "Dad, I have to. He's probably worried sick." The fire alarm, us disappearing. Let him worry." The words came out harder than I'd intended. "Emma, that man at the restaurant told us to check your accounts. Check everything. Before we do anything else, before we talk to Ryan, I need you to look at your bank accounts." She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "My bank accounts, Dad. What does that have to—" "Huh? Please." I was begging now, and I didn't care. "Just look. If I'm wrong, if I'm completely crazy, then we'll call Ryan and apologize and figure out what to do about the fire alarm. But if I'm right—" I couldn't finish that sentence. Didn't want to. The phone buzzed again. Second call. Emma looked at it, then at me, then at the note on the table with its shaky handwriting and desperate plea. Something in her face shifted. Maybe she was remembering how Ryan had insisted on handling all the paperwork. Maybe she was thinking about how fast everything had moved. Maybe she was just trusting her father one more time. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." She grabbed her laptop from her bag, fingers trembling as she opened it. The screen's glow made her face look pale, haunted. She pulled up her bank's website, typed in her password. The phone buzzed a third time. Neither of us answered it. "I'm in," Emma said, her voice tight. "What am I looking for?" See anything unusual? Transactions you don't recognize? Changes you didn't authorize? She clicked through to her checking account, scrolled down the recent activity. Everything looks normal. Groceries, gas, dinner last week at... She stopped scrolling. What? I leaned closer. There's a pending transaction. Her voice had gone flat. Scheduled for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. How much? She didn't answer. Just turned the laptop toward me. $65,000. Scheduled transfer to an account I didn't recognize, a string of numbers that meant nothing. But the authorization signature that was Emma's digital signature. The same one she used for everything official. I didn't do this, Emma whispered. Dad, I swear I would never... I know, sweetheart, I know. But my blood had gone cold. $65,000. That was most of her savings, the money she'd been carefully building since she'd started her career, the emergency fund I'd taught her to maintain. Might you click on the details, I said. She did. The transaction details loaded. Authorization date 3 days ago. 3 days into her marriage. The digital signature was definitely hers. I could see the certificate ID, the timestamp, everything that made it legally binding. The insurance papers. Emma breathed. 3 days ago, Ryan brought home a stack of forms. Said we needed to update everything now that we were married. Beneficiary forms, insurance policies. He had his laptop, said he'd handle the digital signatures since I was tired. Her voice was rising now, panic bleeding through. I signed them on his computer. He said it was easier that way. I trusted him. The phone buzzed a 4th time. What else? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Check everything. Savings, investments, anything you've got. Her fingers flew over the keys, clicking through accounts, while I watched over her shoulder. Each screen loaded like a punch to the gut. Savings account. New restrictions added 3 days ago. Required secondary authorization for any withdrawals over $500. The secondary authorizer, Ryan Mitchell. Investment portfolio beneficiary, changed from me, her father, the person she'd named when she'd opened the account at 22, to Ryan Mitchell. Changed 3 days ago. Life insurance policy through her work, beneficiary updated. 3 days ago. Every single change bore her digital signature. Every single change was dated within 72 hours of her saying, I do. Oh, this isn't possible. Emma was shaking now, her voice cracking. I signed insurance forms, standard stuff, not this. Not. She looked at me, and for the first time since she was a little girl, I saw her completely lost. Dad, what is this? I thought about the old man's note. 3 women. They die in accidents. I thought about how fast everything had moved. 6 months from first date to wedding. I thought about Ryan's face in that alley, the cold calculation, the predator's patience. This wasn't random, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. This was surgical, professional, planned. The phone buzzed a 5th time, then a 6th, 7th. Emma stared at it. What if he knows? What if running away told him that we know something's wrong, and then we need to know more before we talk to him? We need to understand what we're dealing with. 8th call. Emma's hand hovered over the phone, years of conditioning, telling her to answer, to be the good wife, to smooth things over. Amita, I said, my voice as serious as it had ever been. Look at that screen. Look at what's been done to your accounts. She looked, really looked. And I watched the last piece of innocence crumble from her face. Her phone went quiet. The silence felt heavier than the buzzing had. Dad, she whispered, and her voice was shaking now. Really shaking. What if running was the worst thing we could have done? What if he knows we know? What if... She couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Because we both understood now. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't overreaction. This was real. The man my daughter had married 3 weeks ago had spent those 3 weeks systematically taking control of every dollar she owned. And if that old man's note was right, the accidents came next. The phone lit up with a 9th call. Neither of us reached for it. "We have to go, now." The words were out before I'd fully formed them. But Emma's question had crystallized everything. If Ryan realized we suspected him, we'd lose the only advantage that old man's warning had given us. The address on that folded paper wasn't just information, it was our lifeline. And every second we hesitated felt like it was burning through my pocket. 10 minutes later, we were in my truck. Emma's overnight bag lay half-zipped in the back seat. I told her to pack light and move fast. Ryan had called twice while she grabbed essentials. We'd watched his name flash across her screen like a threat and let it ring out. The address led us into a part of Seattle where hope seemed thin and houses leaned close together against the October cold. The 30-minute drive carried us through streets that grew quieter, darker, emptier. Emma sat rigid beside me, her phone clutched in both hands. By the time we turned onto the final street, Ryan had called 3 more times. Each one went to voicemail. The house stood on a narrow lot, its silver paint glowing pale in our headlights. A chain-link fence enclosed a carefully tended garden, roses still blooming, a vegetable patch recently worked. Someone here valued details in a neighborhood where most yards had surrendered years ago. Before I could knock, the porch light flicked on. The door opened to reveal the elderly man from the restaurant, the one who'd slipped that paper into my hand hours earlier. In proper light, he looked about 65, silver hair, combed back eyes, carrying a sorrow I'd only seen once before, when I had to tell a client their son wouldn't be coming home from Afghanistan. "Mr. Blake," he said calmly. "Emma, please come in." The fact that he knew our names sent a chill through me. Inside the house was modest but immaculate. Hardwood floors gleamed under warm lamplight. Old furniture well cared for. Lemon polish and fresh coffee lingered in the air, but it was the living room walls that made Emma gasp. Photographs, dozens, arranged in neat rows like a museum display. Young women all about Emma's age captured in moments of joy, weddings, graduations, mountain hikes, beach vacations. Each picture labeled with a name and dates in careful handwriting. "My name is Henry Foster," the old man said, gesturing for us to sit. His hands trembled faintly as he poured coffee from a waiting carafe. "I know this seems impossible, but everything I'm about to tell you is documented." He moved to the first photograph, a brunette in a white wedding dress smiling at the camera. "Lauren King. She married your son-in-law 10 years ago." He placed a marriage certificate on the table. 6 months later, she died. Carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty furnace in their rental home. Ruled accidental. He laid out the death certificate stamped by a Seattle medical examiner. Then a property transfer deed. Lauren's inherited house investment accounts. Life insurance, everything passing to Ryan Mitchell. $425,000. Kayla Roberts. He gestured to a blonde in hiking gear on what looked like Mount Rainier. 7 years ago. Married 8 months. She fell during a routine climb on a trail she'd done dozens of times. Authorities ruled it an accident. Another marriage certificate. Another death certificate. Another transfer. $380,000. Nicole Turner. A redhead in doctoral regalia. 4 years ago. Brilliant research scientist. Married less than a year when she died of an apparent prescription overdose. Toxicology showed opiates mixed with alcohol. $315,000. I did the math automatically. That's 1.12 million. Exactly. Henry's voice held steady, but his eyes shone. Each time the same pattern. Fast romance. Marriage within months. Property transfers completed within weeks, sometimes before the wedding. Then an accident. No clear evidence of foul play. Husband inherits everything. Emma had gone pale. But 3 times. That can't just be coincidence. 4. Henry corrected gently, pulling out a thicker folder. The common link is Ryan's mother, Diana Mitchell. She's worked in the city records department for 17 years. Marriage licenses, death certificates, property transfers. Everything passes through her office. She has access to forged signatures, backdate documents, create paper trails that survive scrutiny. He spread documents across the table, Diana's signature appearing as witness or notary on multiple filings. Bank statements, insurance updates, deeds processed through legitimate channels that gave her both access and opportunity. I spent 2 years tracking the pattern, Henry continued. Diana files paperwork. Ryan marries. Assets transfer usually within 2 weeks. Then within 6 to 18 months, there's an accident. Ryan disappears with the money, lets suspicion fade, then resurfaces with someone new. But why? Emma whispered. Why would a mother help her son? Money. Henry didn't soften it. She takes a cut, likely 40%. On 1.12 million, that's nearly $500,000. Enough to justify silence. He didn't need to finish. I looked at the photos again, not as framed smiles, but as women who had trusted the wrong man. Emma's next, I said. Yes. Henry slid forward another set of documents. Property transfer paperwork dated 3 days after Emma's wedding. Insurance policies updated to name Ryan's sole beneficiary. Expected payout $890,000. Emma's breath hitched. She has more assets than the others, Henry said gently. The house you helped her buy. The stock options from her tech company. Her mother's inheritance. Ryan likely sees her as his largest return yet. Emma's tears fell silently. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. How do you know all this? I asked. How did you know where we'd be tonight? Henry's expression hardened. Because I've been watching Ryan for 2 years. I know his habits, his targets, his timing. He paused. And because I helped him once, the room went still. He stepped to the end of the photo display and tapped a 4th picture, a young woman with dark curls and green eyes laughing at a beach picnic. Amanda Foster, he said quietly. Officially, she died 2 years ago in a single-vehicle accident on Interstate 5. Rainy night, car off an embankment. Ryan collected $750,000 from her estate. He looked directly at me, but she didn't die. She survived, and she's been watching him ever since. Dawn broke gray and cold over Seattle. I'd managed maybe an hour of restless sleep on Henry's worn couch, Emma curled in an armchair beneath a blanket he'd given her. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photographs on his wall, Lauren, Kayla, Nicole, smiling faces frozen before futures were stolen. The phone rang at exactly 6. She wants to meet, Henry said without greeting. His voice was different now, hard, efficient. 15 minutes from here. A diner. 6:30. Emma was awake before I ended the call. Amanda. I nodded. Time for answers. The diner sat where an aging industrial strip met tired residential blocks. Nancy's 24-hour cafe glowed beneath a flickering neon sign. The kind of place shift workers used and nobody asked questions. Nancy's silver hair in a tight bun poured coffee without comment. We took a back booth. Emma wrapped both hands around her mug like she could warm herself from the inside out. At 6:32, the door chimed. The woman who stepped in looked nothing like the vibrant figure in Henry's photograph. That version of Amanda had been bright laughing. This one moved carefully, dressed in neutral clothes, shoulders slightly hunched, as if shrinking from notice. But when she slid into the booth across from us, I saw it in her eyes, wariness carved deep. The look of someone who had survived something monstrous. Mr. Blake, Emma. Her voice was quiet but steady. I'm Amanda Foster. Up close, she was mid-30s. A faint scar traced above her collar. How do I know that I asked? How do I know you're not working for Ryan? She didn't react. She simply pulled down her collar. The scar began at her jaw and ran down her neck, pale and unmistakable. Because he did this, she said, and he believes I'm dead. She let the fabric fall and took a sip of coffee. When she spoke again, her tone was level, rehearsed by repetition. 2 years ago, I married Ryan Mitchell. He was charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. We met at a tech conference. He said he was in real estate development. 3 months later, we were engaged. 6 months later, married. Emma made a small sound. The pattern mirrored her own. 3 months after the wedding, he suggested a road trip. Cascade Loop. Romantic getaway. Highway 2 towards Stevens Pass. Her hands tightened around the mug. He'd tampered with the brakes and the steering column. When I tried to turn, nothing responded. The car went through the guardrail and rolled down an embankment. You survived, I said quietly. Barely. I was thrown partly through the windshield. That's how this happened. Her fingers brushed the scar. I remember hanging there bleeding. I remember seeing Ryan walk around the car. He looked at me for maybe 10 seconds. Emma whispered, "He checked if you were dead." He walked away, Amanda confirmed. Up the embankment. A car was waiting on the road. He got in and they drove off. Nancy refilled our mugs and disappeared again. I crawled into the trees before I passed out. A hiker found me 2 hours later. EMTs said 30 more minutes, and I wouldn't have made it. But you let everyone think you died, I said. I was admitted as Jane Doe. No ID. By the time I could speak, I understood what he'd done. If Ryan knew I survived. She shook her head. So I stayed dead. Let the paperwork stand. Recovered under a different name. And when I was strong enough, I started watching. For 2 years, Emma said softly. I tracked his pattern. Watched him court a woman in Spokane she moved before he secured her. Watched him test the waters in Portland. Then I saw your wedding announcement. She looked at Emma with quiet recognition. I knew you were next. That's when I contacted Henry. I leaned back. Henry Foster. How do you know him? Amanda set a thick folder on the table. It carried the weight of months, clippings, documents, photographs, notes. Diana Mitchell isn't the mastermind, she said. She handles paperwork. Well paid, but not in charge. She flipped to a section marked in red. Driver's licenses, property filings, court records. Different names, same face. The face of the man who'd warned me. Vincent Shaw, Amanda said. Real estate developer. Supposedly legitimate. But he's run this operation for 15 years under different identities in different cities. He recruits men like Ryan, charming, cold, willing to kill. He handles logistics and takes 70%. Diana is just one of several employees on payroll across the Northwest. My stomach tightened. If he profits from this, if he's running it, why warn us? That's the question. Amanda met my gaze. Why would Vincent Shaw jeopardize everything to save Emma? She slid out one last photograph. Grainy but clear. Vincent Shaw, younger, standing beside a teenage girl. Melissa Shaw, Amanda said quietly. Vincent's daughter. Died 23 years ago, in what was ruled an accidental overdose. She'd been married 6 months. Her husband inherited everything. The pieces fell together. The man who called himself Henry Foster. Amanda continued, that's just another alias. Another role. The grieving father. The helpful witness. Emma's hand tightened around mine. The photographs on his wall, real victims. Real paperwork. Real deaths. But he curated that display. She pushed the folder fully toward me. The man who warned you about Ryan's pattern. The man who showed you evidence and offered sanctuary. Her voice dropped. That was Vincent Shaw. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the hum of refrigerators and the faint clink of dishes behind the counter. I pictured the silver-haired man opening his door before I knocked. The sorrow in his eyes. The careful precision with which he'd laid out those documents. He's been running the machine for 15 years, Amanda said. Recruiting killers, laundering profits, cleaning records, and now I asked. And now she replied, I think he's trying to dismantle it. Emma stared at the photograph of Melissa Shaw. Because of her, Amanda nodded once. He lost his daughter the same way he's helped others lose theirs. Somewhere along the line, guilt caught up. Or he's playing a longer game, I said. That's possible, Amanda admitted. But he contacted me first. Said he was done. Said he wanted to end it before Ryan killed again. Emma's voice trembled. So he warned us. Yes, and Ryan doesn't know. Not yet, Amanda said. If he suspects, he'll vanish. Vincent knows that. That's why everything has to move carefully. I looked down at the folder at years of documentation, layered in ink and signatures. So we've been hiding in the house of the man who built the trap, I said. Amanda held my gaze steadily. Yes, and you think he's trying to stop the monster he helped create? She nodded. Outside, the gray morning brightened slightly, though no warmth came with it. Emma's thumb traced the edge of her mug. If Vincent Shaw really wants to end this, she said softly, then he's going to have to bring down his own son. Amanda's expression didn't change, and that she said is exactly what he intends to do. The coffee in my hand suddenly tasted like betrayal. I turned slowly, already knowing what I would see. At the table directly beside ours, the one I had barely noticed when we sat down, was the man who had called himself Henry Foster. He had been there the entire time, listening, waiting. You've been playing us, I said, my voice flat. The elderly posture vanished. He straightened, and the illusion dissolved. His shoulders no longer stooped. His eyes were sharp, not roomy. Even his voice when he spoke carried no tremor. Guilty, Vincent Shaw said smoothly. But I also saved your daughter's life. At least for now. Emma's hand found mine under the table, her grip tight. Why, Amanda asked quietly. Why reveal yourself now? We could have walked away believing Henry was just another grieving father. Because we're past subtlety, Vincent replied. And because Bob needs to understand the choice in front of him. I'm not making any deals with you, I said. You haven't heard the terms. He leaned back comfortably. I've been running operations in the Pacific Northwest for 15 years. Tech executives, federal contractors, people with complex estates and clean public profiles. 1 or 2 cases a year, different cities spaced out enough to avoid patterns. The FBI has a file on me. It's thin. He gestured dismissively. Diana Mitchell, on the other hand, is sloppy. 4 victims in 10 years, same region. Greedy. Property transfers 3 days after a wedding that draws federal attention. And federal attention in Seattle is bad for my interests elsewhere. So you want her removed, Amanda said. I need her removed. But I can't do it directly. If she disappears, I'm the first suspect. However, he smiled, a concerned father uncovering a murder conspiracy. That's civic responsibility. You manipulated everything I said. The warning, the house, the photographs, Amanda. Vincent saved me, Amanda said quietly. I turned to her. 2 years ago, I should have died on that mountain road, she continued. He had someone watching Ryan for separate reasons. When the crash happened, his people pulled me out and got me to a hospital. I survived because I agreed to help when he called in the favor. I gave you information, Vincent said. You chose how to act. You ran from the restaurant. You came to the house. You believed what you saw. I opened doors, and now I asked. You expect me to take Diana down for you. I expect you to save your daughter. He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward us. A live feed. Ryan's car parked outside a building I knew too well, Emma's apartment complex. He's been circling since midnight, Vincent said calmly. He knows something is wrong. Diana will give the order within 24 hours. Maybe less. Emma went pale. You have two options, Bob Vincent continued. Option 1. You work with me. We expose Diana completely. I provide additional evidence, things Amanda doesn't have. You take it to authorities. Diana goes to prison. Ryan follows. Your daughter lives. I disappear. And option 2. You refuse. You go to the police with what you have now. It's not enough for murder, maybe financial fraud at best. Diana and Ryan panic. They accelerate. And Emma becomes victim number 5. He stood buttoning his coat with precise calm. You have until 7 a.m. tomorrow. That's when Diana moves regardless. I know her patterns. And if I turn you in instead, I asked. Vincent smiled faintly. Henry Foster doesn't exist. The house you visited has already been scrubbed. You can try, but time spent chasing me is time Ryan uses planning your daughter's accident. He stepped toward the door. Amanda followed silently. At the threshold, he paused. Choose wisely, Bob. My way, Diana goes to prison. Your way. He shrugged. Ryan finishes what he started. The door chimed behind them. Through the window, I watched Amanda slide into the driver's seat of a black sedan, Vincent beside her. They merged smoothly into morning traffic. Nancy returned, topped off our coffee, and left the check face down. The fluorescent lights buzzed. A low radio played classic rock. The world continued as if nothing had shifted. Dad. Emma's voice trembled. What do we do? I watched the sedan disappear around a corner. 24 hours. The sun climbed higher, stretching shadows across the parking lot. 24 hours to decide whether to make a deal with a crime boss or risk my daughter's life. Two predators. Both dangerous. Both wanting the other gone. Vincent had called Diana sloppy, greedy, drawing attention. He had also made one mistake. He had assumed I would choose between them. But maybe the way to beat two hunters wasn't to ally with one. Maybe it was to turn them on each other. I looked at Emma, brave, frightened, alive. I think I said slowly, we let them believe we're choosing. Her brow furrowed. What does that mean? It means we make Vincent think we're working with him. We make Diana think we're running scared. And we give both of them just enough truth to make them doubt each other. Emma stared at me, understanding dawning. Divide them, she whispered. Yes. Vincent relied on patterns. Diana relied on paperwork. Ryan relied on control. If we disrupted all three at once, maybe they'd turn inward instead of outward. 24 hours. Enough time to set a trap, but only if we moved first. Nancy's check sat between us. The world outside brightened with indifferent sunlight. I reached for my phone. First, I said we call Vincent back. Emma swallowed. And tell him what? That we're in. Her eyes searched mine. Are we? No, I said quietly. We're just making him think we are. Outside traffic thickened with morning commuters, unaware that somewhere between them, two criminal operations were preparing to move. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something that wasn't fear, strategy. For hours, I wrestled with Vincent's ultimatum. Every choice felt like betrayal of justice of the victims of my own conscience. By noon, I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. The problem wasn't which predator to help. It was how to trap them both. I paced my living room 28 feet I'd measured and built myself 15 years ago. Emma sat curled in Sarah's old reading chair watching me wear a path in the carpet. Ryan had stopped calling around 10 a.m. That silence felt more threatening than the ringing ever had. You're not actually considering helping Vincent, Emma said. No, but I am considering making him think I am. She straightened. A double cross? More like a triple cross. We need evidence against both Vincent and Diana. Real evidence. The kind that can't be dismissed or buried. Diana's office, Emma said. That's where the records would be. City Records building downtown, 4th floor. Diana works in property and transfer. I pulled up the building on my phone. Standard security keycards, cameras, night guard. Emma came to stand beside me. If we could expose both of them at once, publicly, we need witnesses. I finished her thought. Thousands of witnesses. My phone rang. Amanda. I put it on speaker. Tell me you're calling to help. Both, maybe. Her voice was strained. Vincent thinks you're taking his deal. I have maybe 12 hours before he expects a decision. We're not taking his deal. I know. That's why I'm calling. Background noise suggested somewhere public. Diana's office, 4th floor, room 412. She works late Tuesdays and Thursdays, never weekends. Security guard Carl does rounds every 40 minutes. Cameras in main corridors, but not individual offices, budget cuts. Cleaning crew finishes by 11 p.m. There's a 10-minute window where the east service door stays propped open for trash removal. Emma was already taking notes. Amanda, I said carefully. Why are you helping us? Long silence. Because Vincent saved my life, but I never agreed to help him destroy someone else's. If you're planning what I think you're planning, maybe this ends. Maybe all of it ends. She hung up. Emma looked at me. Tonight, before Vincent expects an answer, I'll scout the building first. Be downtown by 5, watch the shift change, see Carl's patrol pattern. I checked the clock, 2:47 p.m. Get a sense of the layout, find blind spots. And tomorrow, Emma's voice shook. Vincent's deadline is tomorrow morning. This was the part I'd been dreading. Tomorrow you go back to Ryan. Dad, just for a few hours? Morning coffee? Act like everything's fine, like you overreacted about the restaurant. Take pictures if you can. But mainly, you buy us time. You want me to be bait. I want you to be an actress, the best one he's ever seen. I took her ice-cold hands in mine. By the time he realizes something's wrong, we'll already have what we need. And when we go public, and we will go public, you'll be somewhere safe with witnesses around you. How do we go public in a way they can't stop? I thought about the photos on Vincent's wall, the spreadsheet with Emma's name and a dollar figure beside it. I thought about Lauren King and Kayla Roberts and Nicole Turner, women who died in shadows while the world went on unknowing. Yeah, we make sure the whole world is watching, I said. Live in real time. So many people, there's no way to hide it. Understanding dawned. A live stream. We go into Diana's office, find everything, every file, every victim, every dollar. Document it on camera. Then wait for them to come to us. Vincent, Diana, Ryan, all of them walking into a trap with thousands watching. They'll never let us broadcast from inside. They won't know we're broadcasting until it's too late. I started a voice memo on my phone. This is Bob Blake. October 15th, 2024, 3:02 p.m. My daughter Emma and I are about to expose a criminal conspiracy involving multiple deaths and millions in fraud. If you're hearing this, we've either succeeded or... I stopped, saved it. There's insurance. We document everything, upload it multiple places. Cloud storage, trusted contacts with instructions to release if anything happens. Emma slowly nodded, fear and courage fighting in her expression. If Ryan suspects, I thought about 3 women who'd trusted him, about Amanda's scar, about my daughter's name on that spreadsheet like she was already dead. Then we make sure we act fast enough that it doesn't matter. I checked my watch. Tonight I scout. Tomorrow morning you give the performance of your life. And when we're ready, I looked at my phone. Thought about all the people who could be watching. We fight in the light where everyone can see, where they can't make us disappear. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from Ryan, miss you. Coffee tomorrow, need to talk. Her hands shook as she showed me. Perfect, I said. Tell him yes. 10 a.m. that cafe near his place. Public, lots of people, she typed with trembling fingers. Yes. I'm sorry about the other night. We should talk, NAM. Ryan's reply came instantly. Can't wait. I love you. Emma stared at those 3 words like they were a death sentence. Like we're going to end this, I told her. Tonight we get evidence. Tomorrow you keep him distracted. Then we bring it all down where everyone can see, Vincent and Diana both. She looked up at me, and I saw her mother in her face, that same stubborn determination. Okay, Emma said. Let's do it. Outside afternoon sun descended toward evening. Somewhere across the city, Vincent waited for an answer he'd never get. Diana shuffled papers at her desk business as usual. Ryan planned his next move, thinking he had all the time in the world. They were all wrong. By this time tomorrow, the whole world would know their names, and this time the victims would have witnesses. The afternoon after our break-in, watching Emma prepare to walk back into Ryan's trap, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. We had evidence safely backed up in the cloud files. Photographs, Diana's spreadsheets showing every victim and every dollar. Now we needed to buy time before making our final move. Emma stood before her bedroom mirror practicing her lines like an actress preparing for opening night. Hey, I'm sorry. My dad just... He panicked, you know. I watched from the doorway, my chest tight. You can still back out. She met my eyes in the reflection. No. Those women, Lauren, Kayla, Nicole, they trusted him completely. That's why they died. I'm walking in there knowing exactly what he is. That's my advantage. She pulled out her phone, stared at Ryan's name in her contacts. 36 hours since she'd last spoken to him. 36 hours he'd been wondering, worrying, possibly planning. She hit dial. Ryan. Her voice was perfect, hesitant, apologetic, young. I'm so sorry. I could hear his voice through the speaker relief mixed with something else. Something calculating. Emma, thank God. Where are you? I've been losing my mind. Dad had some kind of panic attack. Made me scared of everything. Can we meet? I need to see you. Of course. The cafe, 2 o'clock. Perfect, I'll be there. She hung up and looked at me. He bought it. He wants to believe it, I said. That makes him vulnerable. I followed from a distance, parking across the street, where I had a clear view through the cafe windows. My phone was recording insurance documentation evidence if anything went wrong. Ryan arrived 5 minutes early. Through the window, I watched him choose a table with sight lines to the door, check his phone, twice run his hand through his hair. If I didn't know better, I'd think he was a nervous man in love. Emma walked in at exactly 2 p.m. Ryan stood immediately, his face transforming into perfect concern. He pulled her into a hug that looked tender, protective. She didn't pull away, my brave girl. They sat. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the scene. Emma's body language hesitant, confused, apologetic. Ryan's understanding, forgiving, loving. The perfect husband, whose wife had been temporarily led astray by her overprotective father. He took her hand across the table. She let him. They talked for 20 minutes. Coffee arrived. Emma laughed once, a performance so good I almost believed it myself. Ryan's posture relaxed incrementally. Whatever doubts he'd harbored were being carefully dismantled by my daughter's acting. Then Ryan leaned forward, said something that made Emma nod. He gestured toward the street, toward his apartment building 3 blocks away. She hesitated, perfectly calibrated uncertainty, then agreed. They stood. He paid. His hand settled on the small of her back as they walked out. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. Ryan's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a modern building, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed success. I parked where I could see his windows, sent Emma a text, I'm here. You're not alone. 3 dots appeared, then I know. Going in now. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. Later, Emma would tell me what happened inside. How Ryan had been the perfect host, offered wine, put on music, made her comfortable. How he'd pulled out folders of paperwork, spread them across his glass coffee table. Hiding insurance updates, he'd said. We should finalize these soon. Standard beneficiary changes for married couples. Emma had played confused. This looks complicated. Dear, trust me, it's routine. We just need to complete them within the next few days. She'd pretended to read the forms, while her phone, hidden in her purse with the camera lens exposed, silently photographed everything on the table. When Ryan went to the kitchen for more wine, she'd moved fast, flipped through the folders, captured images of documents that would never hold up in court because they'd been obtained illegally, but would be devastating in the court of public opinion. A list of names with dates beside them, financial projections in neat columns, notes about timelines and methods, and at the bottom in Ryan's careful handwriting, Emma Blake, timeline 3 days, hiking accident, 3 days. Her hands had been shaking when she signed a harmless form to maintain her cover, a dental insurance update that meant nothing. Ryan had returned, seen her signature, smiled. See easy. She'd stayed another hour, laughed at his jokes, let him kiss her goodbye at the door, played the role all the way through. My phone buzzed at 4:47 p.m. Emma walking down the street toward where I'd parked. I met her halfway, and the mask finally dropped. She was shaking. I got it, she whispered. I got everything. In my truck, she pulled up the photos on her phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through them. Names I recognized from Henry's wall, from Vincent's wall. Lauren King, Kayla Roberts, Nicole Turner, dollar amounts beside each name, all in the hundreds of thousands, and new names, potential targets. Women Ryan had researched but not yet approached. Their net worth listed like they were investment opportunities. Then Emma's own page. Her name at the top in that same careful handwriting. Emma Blake. Net worth $890,000. Timeline 3 days. Method. Hiking accident. North Cascades, date October 18th. October 18th, 3 days from now. Below that, more details. Trail names, weather forecasts, the specific turn where cell service dropped out. He'd planned it like a construction project, every detail accounted for, every risk mitigated. He showed me the insurance forms. Emma said, her voice hollow. Kept saying we should finalize everything this week, before our hiking trip this weekend. She laughed, a broken sound. He invited me to go hiking, Dad, this weekend, to the exact spot he's planning to. She couldn't finish. I pulled her close, felt her shaking against me. You were incredible. So brave. I kept thinking about Amanda, she whispered. About her scar. About how she survived because someone was watching. We have evidence now. From Diana's office and from Ryan's apartment. Both of them documented. I looked at the photos again. At my daughter's name with a death date beside it. At the casual professionalism of a man who'd turned ending lives into a business model. Whatever we're doing next, Emma said, pulling back to look at me. We have to do it now. He's moving faster than we thought. 3 days. We'd bought time with last night's break-in, gathering evidence from Diana's office that proved the pattern. But Ryan was accelerating, perhaps sensing something was wrong, perhaps just following his timeline. Either way, we were out of time. Tonight, I said. We make our move tonight. That afternoon, while Emma rested before tomorrow's performance, I drove downtown to scout the building where Diana Mitchell kept her secrets. 28 years in construction had taught me that every building has weaknesses. I just needed to find Diana's. Downtown Seattle at 5 p.m. was a river of people flowing toward parking garages and bus stops. I found a coffee shop across from the City Records building, ordered something I didn't drink, and settled at a window table with a clear view. The building was pure 1970s, brutalist 6 floors of poured concrete with narrow windows like defensive slits. The kind of architecture that prioritized function over form, built during an era when governments believed in permanence. I'd worked on the seismic retrofit of a similar building in 2019. I knew this type solid institutional aging infrastructure beneath a maintained exterior. From my vantage point, I watched the exodus. Office workers in business casual streamed through the main entrance. At 5:15, I spotted Karen, the office staffer Amanda had mentioned, leaving with a canvas tote bag and earbuds in. She looked tired, ready for her evening to begin. Through the glass front doors, I could see the security desk. Carl sat behind it, middle-aged and thick around the middle, wearing a uniform that had seen better days. As I watched, he stood stretched, picked up his radio, and disappeared into an interior corridor. I checked my watch and started timing. 40 minutes later, Carl reappeared at his desk. Sat down, made a note in his logbook, settled back into his chair. The rhythm of institutional security, predictable, methodical, human. I left the coffee shop and walked the building's perimeter. The main entrance faced the street cameras above the door's card readers, too exposed. The north side entrance was similar, but the rear, where the building faced an alley shared with 2 other office complexes, told a different story. The loading dock area was active at 6:30 p.m. A maintenance truck was backed up to the service entrance, and I watched 2 workers in coveralls prop the metal door open with a wheeled cart while they hauled cleaning supplies inside. The door would stay propped for easy access, standard practice I'd seen on 100 job sites. A schedule posted near the door confirmed what Amanda had told me: cleaning crew arrival at 10 p.m., departure by 11 p.m. 4 hours to service 6 floors. I circled back to study the camera positions. The building's security system was visible from the outside, black domes mounted at regular intervals. Heavy coverage on floors 1 through 3 where public services operated. But the 4th floor, where property and transfer sat, had only 2 cameras I could identify, both covering the main corridor. The stairwell would be the weak point. Emergency egress stairs in buildings this vintage rarely had cameras, too expensive to retrofit, and most security directors focused on main entry points and high traffic areas. I walked back to my truck, parked 3 blocks away, made notes in my phone. Drew a rough sketch: parking garage beneath the building, likely accessible from the service entrance. Stairwell connecting all floors. 4th floor corridor with 2 cameras. Room 412 at the end of the hall, Amanda's intel. At 8 p.m. I returned for the evening observation. The city had transformed. The rush hour crowd was gone, replaced by scattered individuals heading to restaurants or late shifts. The brutalist building loomed darker now, only half its windows still lit. Carl's silhouette was visible through the front glass, doing another round. I timed him again. 40 minutes, almost to the second. He was a creature of habit, probably had been doing these same rounds for years, long enough that the routine had worn grooves into his night. By 9 p.m. I had what I needed. The window would open at 11:15 p.m. after the cleaning crew departed, but before Carl's next patrol cycle. The service entrance offered the best access point. The 4th floor had minimal camera coverage. The stairwell would be dimly lit with only emergency lighting, easy to navigate for someone who knew buildings. I sat in my truck reviewing my notes. Every line I'd drawn, every timing I'd calculated, every camera angle I'd memorized, pointed to a single conclusion: this was feasible, but tight. One mistake, one deviation from the schedule, and Emma and I wouldn't just lose our opportunity. We'd lose everything. The plan crystallized. Enter through the service entrance at 11:15, take the stairwell to avoid cameras, reach the 4th floor, while Carl was finishing his patrol of the 2nd floor. Locate room 412. Gather what we could in approximately 20 minutes, exit before Carl's next round began at midnight. 20 minutes to document years of fraud. 20 minutes to gather evidence against both Diana and Vincent. 20 minutes to save my daughter's life. I started the engine. Time to go home, rest for 2 hours, and then attempt the most dangerous thing I'd ever done. Not because I was brave, not because I knew what I was doing, but because Emma's name was on a spreadsheet in that building with a dollar figure next to it, like she was already dead. Because 3 women before her had trusted the wrong man and paid with their lives. Because Amanda Foster had survived against impossible odds and deserved to see justice done. Because sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to walk into the darkness and drag the truth into the light. I drove through Seattle's evening streets, past restaurants where people laughed over dinner, past movie theaters where couples held hands, past the normal life Emma should have been living, instead of preparing to deceive a man who was planning her death. 2 hours until 11:15 p.m. 2 hours to review the plan, check the equipment, tell Emma I loved her. 2 hours before I'd find out if 28 years of building things had taught me enough about how to break into them. 11:15 at night in downtown Seattle felt like being at the bottom of an ocean dark cold and full of hidden dangers. Emma sat beside me in my truck, USB drive in her pocket, fear and determination warring across her face. "Wadium," I asked, though I knew neither of us could ever be truly ready for this. She nodded, gripping the door handle. "Let's finish this." We'd parked on sub-level B2 of the garage beneath the City Records building, far from the camera coverage I'd mapped during my reconnaissance. Both of us wore dark clothing and baseball caps pulled low, not enough to hide our identities, if someone looked closely, but sufficient in the shadows and emergency lighting. "Stay close," I said as we exited the truck. "Stay quiet. If anything goes wrong, you run. Promise me." "We'll both run, Dad." The service entrance was exactly where I'd seen it that afternoon. The metal door propped slightly ajar by a wooden wedge maintenance protocol I'd counted on. No alarm sounded as I pulled it open, just enough for us to slip through. Inside, the corridor smelled of industrial cleaner and old concrete. Emergency lights cast everything in a dim green glow. The cleaning crew had finished their work and departed 15 minutes ago, leaving behind the particular silence of a building that should be empty. I found the stairwell door, heavy metal, no window, no camera above it. Old building design, back when security meant locks and guards, not digital surveillance. The door opened with a low creak that made Emma flinch beside me. The stairwell was darker than the corridor, lit only by emergency exit signs at each landing. Our boots made soft sounds on the metal stairs despite our efforts at silence. Each footfall seemed to echo upward through the concrete shaft. Second floor. I paused, listening. Nothing but the ambient hum of a building at rest, HVAC systems, electrical transformers, the white noise of infrastructure. Third floor. Emma's breathing was quick and shallow beside me. I squeezed her shoulder once, reassurance without words. Fourth floor. The door had a narrow window of reinforced glass. I edged up to it, careful to keep most of my body out of sight, and peered through. The corridor was empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that familiar institutional glow. I could see the 2 cameras I'd identified earlier, mounted near the elevator bank, their lenses pointing down the main hallway. But the stairwell door was in their blind spot. I'd counted on that during my reconnaissance. I eased the door open. "Stay against the wall," I whispered. We moved along the corridor, hugging the wall where the camera angles couldn't reach. Room 408. Room 410. And then at the corner where the corridor turned, Room 412. The nameplate read, Diana Mitchell, Deputy Director, Property and Transfer. I knelt before the lock, while Emma stood guard, her back pressed against the wall, eyes fixed on the corridor behind us. From my pocket, I pulled the tools I'd brought, tension wrench and pick, skills I'd learned 30 years ago working construction in neighborhoods where you sometimes locked yourself out and locksmiths cost money we didn't have. "This might take a minute," I murmured. Emma's hand found my shoulder, squeezed once. Her palm was cold even through my jacket. The lock was standard commercial grade, better than residential, but not high security. I worked the pick carefully, feeling for the pins, applying steady pressure with the wrench. 5 pins. The first 2 gave easily, The third was stubborn. Behind me, Emma's breathing stopped for a moment. Someone's. I froze, listened. Footsteps distant from the far end of the corridor. But they faded away, moving down a different hallway. Not Carl, probably a late worker heading to the parking garage. The fourth pin clicked. The fifth. And then the tension wrench turned, and the bolt slid free with a soft, metallic click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. The door opened into darkness. Inside the office was everything I'd expected, and nothing at all. File cabinets lined one wall. A desk held a computer monitor keyboard, a coffee mug with a picture of a golden retriever, family photos on a shelf, Diana with a teenage boy, presumably Ryan, at a younger age. Everything was neat, organized, mundane, the banality of evil, I thought. This could be anyone's office. You'd never know from looking that murders had been planned here, that lives had been reduced to spreadsheets and property transfers. "I'll take the files," I said quietly. "You handle the computer." Emma moved to the desk, pulled out the USB drive, and plugged it into the tower beneath the monitor. The screen bloomed to life, casting blue light across her face. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, with the swift confidence of someone who'd spent years in user experience design, understanding systems, finding pathways. I moved to the filing cabinets, tried the first drawer locked. Of course it was locked. I pulled out my tools again, applied the same technique. The cabinet lock was simpler than the door meant to deter casual snooping, rather than determined intrusion. It opened with a quiet, metallic groan. Inside folders were arranged by year, each tab labeled with initials. I pulled 2020 Lauren King's file. The marriage certificate was on top, official and legitimate looking. Beneath it, the death certificate, cause of death listed as accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. Property transfer documents showed her grandmother's house investment accounts, life insurance, all passing to Ryan Mitchell. Everything Diana needed to steal a life filed away, like it was just another day at the office. "Hi, Dad." Emma's whisper was urgent but controlled. "I'm in. There's so much here. Spreadsheets, emails, scanned documents. Years of this." I checked my watch, 11:28 p.m. Carl's next patrol would bring him to the fourth floor in 12 minutes. 12 minutes to photograph everything we could download, what Emma could access, gather enough evidence to bury both Diana and Vincent. "Start copying everything," I said, moving to the next folder. 2017, Kayla Roberts. 2014, Nicole Turner. Each folder telling the same story with different names, different faces, different families destroyed. We needed every second, 12 minutes. That's all the time we had before Carl's patrol brought him to the fourth floor. 12 minutes to document years of ending lives and stealing fortunes. My hands moved faster than they had in decades. I pulled the first folder completely free, Lauren King, 2014. The marriage certificate was on top, looking official, until you knew what to look for. The notary stamp was slightly off-center, the kind of detail that wouldn't raise questions unless you were specifically looking for forgery. Beneath it, the death certificate, cause of death listed as carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty furnace. Then, the property transfers, her grandmother's house in the suburbs, investment accounts, life insurance policies. Total value $425,000, all passing to Ryan Mitchell. I photographed every page with my phone, forcing my hands steady despite the adrenaline. Each document was a piece of a woman's life reduced to paperwork and profit. Behind me, Emma's fingers flew across the keyboard, the soft clicks punctuating the silence like a countdown timer. I moved to the next folder. Kayla Roberts, 2017. Marriage certificate, death certificate this time, a hiking accident on Mount Rainier. Property transfer documents, $380,000. More notes in Diana's handwriting, detailing which stamps she'd used, which documents required backdating, which officials had signed off without looking too closely. Dad. Emma's whisper was tight with shock. I'm in the main database. There's a spreadsheet. Projects.xlsx. I glanced over while sliding out the third folder. Emma's face was illuminated by the monitor's blue glow, her eyes wide. It's not just 3 victims, she breathed. There are preliminary research files on 6 other women. Women with assets, women who fit the profile. She's been hunting. Nicole Turner, 2020. The pattern repeated: marriage, death by prescription, overdose, property transfer. $315,000. Diana's notes were more detailed here, including copies of the forged prescription forms, documentation of how she'd backdated the paperwork to make everything appear legitimate. $1.12 million stolen from 3 dead women, documented in neat folders like they were just another day at the office. So copy everything, I said quietly. Multiple backups. Emma's USB drive was already working. Uploading to Dropbox and Google Drive. Multiple accounts. Even if they find one, we'll have copies. I checked my watch, 11:35 p.m., 5 minutes before Carl would be at the elevator pressing the button for the 4th floor. I photographed the last pages of Nicole's folder, Diana's step-by-step notes on how to process fraudulent death certificates, which county offices had lax verification procedures, which stamps could be forged with simple tools ordered online. It was the instruction manual for murder filed away like a recipe collection. 87%, Emma whispered, watching the upload progress bar. 92%. I carefully returned the folders to their exact positions, making sure the tabs aligned perfectly. Any sign of disturbance, and Diana would know someone had been here. There's more, Emma said, her voice shaking slightly. A folder called Future Targets. 4 women in Seattle. Names, addresses, net worth calculations, relationship status. She's been researching them. Is your name? No, not yet. Emma's fingers flew across the keyboard, taking screenshots. But these women... Dad, we have to warn them. After we're done with Diana, we have to... We will. I moved to stand behind her, watching the screen. 4 photographs, 4 profiles. Women going about their lives, unaware that someone was calculating their worth and planning their ends. 96%, Emma reported. Almost there. I scanned the office one final time, making sure everything was exactly as we'd found it. The coffee mug with the golden retriever, the family photos, the neat stacks of paperwork. No sign that we'd been here except for the files now uploading to cloud servers across the internet. 98%, 99. My watch showed 11:38. 2 minutes until Carl reached this floor. We needed to be in that stairwell moving down and away before he stepped out of the elevator. 100%, Emma breathed. It's backed up. Multiple copies. They can't erase this. She ejected the USB drive, shut down the computer properly, no sudden power-offs that might leave traces in the system logs. I gathered my tools, returned them to my pocket. Everything had to look undisturbed, unremarkable. Let's go, I said, but Emma had frozen at the computer, her hand still on the mouse, staring at the screen. Dad. Her voice was barely audible. There's one more file. Diana's personal notes. Not in the projects folder. Hidden in a subfolder labeled Insurance. Emma, we're out of time. It's about Vincent Shaw. That stopped me. I moved to see the screen. The file was a detailed dossier. Decades of information on Vincent Shaw compiled methodically, obsessively. Money laundering operations in 3 states. Names of victims going back 15 years, well before Diana had started working with Ryan. Financial records showing Vincent's cut from various projects totaling millions. Contact information for law enforcement agencies. federal investigators, journalists who'd covered similar cases. Diana wasn't just working for Vincent Shaw. She was building a case against him. Oh, this is... Emma scrolled through page after page. This is everything. Bank accounts, property holdings, aliases he's used. She's been documenting his entire operation. If this got out, Vincent would go to prison for life. Or if Vincent found out she had this, I said slowly, he'd make sure she never had the chance to use it. Emma looked up at me, horror and understanding mingling in her expression. She's planning to betray him, take him down and eliminate her competition at the same time. I checked my watch, 11:39. 1 minute. Copy it, I said. Fast. Emma's fingers flew. The file was large years of compiled evidence, but she managed to save it to the USB drive in 40 seconds. The longest 40 seconds of my life. Done, she said, ejecting the drive. We moved to the door. I eased it open, checked the corridor. Empty. The elevator display showed Carl on the 3rd floor ascending. Go, I whispered. We slipped out of room 412, leaving everything exactly as we'd found it. Everything except the digital copies now stored in 3 separate cloud accounts on a USB drive in Emma's pocket and backed up to my phone. We'd come for evidence of Diana's crimes. We were leaving with something far more dangerous, proof that could start a war between 2 criminals each with everything to lose. The stairwell door closed behind us, just as we heard the elevator chime. We almost made it. The evidence was backed up. The room looked untouched, and we were 10 seconds from the door when I heard footsteps in the corridor. Not Carl's steady patrol rhythm. These were faster, purposeful, angry. They stopped outside room 412. I grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her behind the desk. We crouched, barely breathing. Beneath the door, 2 shadows blocked the hallway light. The handle turned. Fluorescence snapped on blinding. Ryan Mitchell stood in the doorway. Carl was beside him, stiff in his security uniform hand, hovering near his radio. Motion sensors, Bob. Ryan's voice was stripped of charm, cold and precise. 4th floor triggered 20 minutes ago. Did you think I wouldn't monitor my own building? I stepped out, shielding where Emma hid. Stay away from my daughter. Ryan's smile was thin as wire. Your daughter. She's my wife. Legally, what's hers is mine. You're the criminal who broke into a government office? He glanced at Carl. Isn't that right? Carl shifted uneasily. Mr. Mitchell, should I call the police? Not yet. Ryan's eyes stayed on me. Let's see what they thought they could steal. We didn't steal anything, I said, backing toward the desk. No. He entered the room with calm, rehearsed grace. Then why break into my mother's office in the middle of the night? His gaze flicked past me. Where is she, Bob? Where's Emma? Emma rose from behind the desk. For a heartbeat, surprise cracked his mask. Then it returned. I'm right here, she said, voice steady. And I know exactly what you are. His face softened into concern, so convincing it might have fooled anyone else. Emma, sweetheart, whatever your father told you. Lauren King, she cut in. Kayla Roberts, Nicole Turner. Should I keep going? The mask shattered. What remained was pure calculation. No remorse, no hesitation, Carl Ryan said quietly. Lock the door. Carl hesitated. Sir, I don't think... Lock the door. Training overrode instinct. The lock clicked. Emma, run, I shouted. She bolted toward the emergency exit behind Diana's desk, the fire escape I'd spotted earlier. Ryan lunged to intercept her. I stepped into him. We collided hard. He was younger, stronger, but I'd spent decades hauling concrete and lumber. I drove him backward into a filing cabinet. It tipped. Folders spilled in a cascade. Lauren, Kayla, Nicole, years of meticulous planning scattered across the floor. Carl grabbed my arm. Sir, please. I shoved him off. Stay out of it. Emma slammed the crash bar on the emergency door. The alarm detonated into sound, a deafening shriek. Emergency lights strobed down the corridor. "Go," I yelled. She disappeared through the exit. I followed. Behind us, Ryan shouted, but the alarm swallowed his words. The stairwell exploded with flashing light and echoing noise. Emma flew down the metal steps, 2 at a time. I followed, gripping the railing, clutching my phone, our photographed evidence secured inside it. Above us, the stairwell door burst open. Ryan's voice echoed down, stripped of charm. "You can run, Bob, but you can't hide. You can't escape me. You can't escape Vincent. We'll find you." His words fractured in the siren's howl as we burst through the ground floor exit into the parking garage. Emma sprinted to my truck, yanking open the passenger door. I hit the key fob. The engine roared. We were moving before the doors fully shut, tires screeching as I took the turn too fast. In the rearview mirror, Ryan emerged at the garage entrance, phone to his ear face, twisted with fury under fluorescent glare. He was calling someone. Vincent, Diana. The police. Emma's breathing was ragged. Her hands shook as she checked her phone. The backup completed. Everything's uploaded. Multiple copies. I merged into late-night traffic, checking mirrors constantly. No headlights yet, but that wouldn't last. Ryan had seen the files. He knew we had proof. He'd call Vincent, call Diana. They'd all know. Dad. Emma's voice was small. What do we do now? I thought about the files stored across cloud servers, about Ryan's call, about the hornet's nest we'd just kicked, 2 separate swarms, both lethal. Now, I said, forcing calm into my voice, we make sure the whole world sees it, before they can stop us. Downtown Seattle shrank in the rearview mirror. Somewhere behind us, Ryan Mitchell was mobilizing whatever resources he had left. Vincent Shaw was likely learning that his operation had been exposed. Diana Mitchell would soon discover her office had been breached. The hunt had begun. And this time we weren't just running. We were carrying the truth. We drove for 20 minutes, taking random turns through Seattle's late-night streets, until I was certain no one was following. When we finally pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner on the city's outskirts, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn off the engine. Nancy, the name on her tag identified her as the night shift waitress, looked about 50, her kind face weathered by years of long shifts. She poured coffee without being asked, movements efficient and practiced. We slid into a corner booth. I took the seat with my back to the wall so I could watch the entrance. Old habits from construction jobs in rough neighborhoods. Always know your exits. Emma stared at her phone, the glow lighting her exhausted face. Dad, it's blowing up. 15 missed calls from Ryan? 10 from a number I don't recognize? Don't answer. The coffee burned my tongue, but I drank it anyway, needing something solid. We need to think. Think about what her voice trembled with exhaustion and fear. They know we have the evidence. Vincent gave you until 7 a.m. That's 6 hours. Ryan knows we know. Diana will see her office in the morning. We can't keep running. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos. Lauren King's marriage certificate. Kayla Roberts' death certificate. Nicole Turner's property transfers. Years of calculated theft and planning now backed up across cloud servers. What if we just send it to the police? Emma asked. Vincent has connections. Diana works inside the system. She's been processing fraudulent paperwork for years without getting caught. They'll bury the evidence or bury us before it sticks. Silence settled heavy between us. Around the diner, life continued. A truck driver at the counter nursing his coffee. A young couple holding hands in a booth. A group of nurses laughing over pie. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, while we sat with proof of multiple deaths and no clear way to use it. Nancy returned with the pot. You two all right? Looks like one hell of a night. We're trying to figure something out, I said carefully. She smiled kindly. Well, I hope you've got people on your side. World's a scary place to face alone. Her words lingered after she moved on. Emma was absently scrolling when she suddenly froze. Dad. What? What if Nancy's right? About what? People on our side. She turned her phone toward me. Last year, a whistleblower live-streamed corporate fraud. Thousands watched in real time. The company couldn't bury it because too many people saw. Something clicked. Live stream. Witnesses. Vincent couldn't intimidate everyone. Diana couldn't rewrite records already broadcast to thousands. We don't choose between Vincent and Diana, I said slowly. We expose both. Live. In front of everyone. Emma's eyes brightened for the first time that night. They can't silence 10,000 people. Or 50,000. If we go public fast enough, it's unstoppable. I pulled out my phone and opened Facebook, an app Emma had set up for me years ago, so I could see her photos. I've never done this. I have. She slid beside me and began tapping across the screen with confident speed. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We can stream to all of them. Multi-platform. When you go live, I'll share it from my accounts. We tell everyone to share it. We make it viral. She configured the stream settings, explained viewer counts, comments, shares. Her UX design training made her fluent in a language I barely spoke. When I asked, she checked the time. 1 a.m. now. Before Vincent's deadline. Before Ryan organizes anything. She hesitated. We go back to that building. Confront Diana. With the world watching. She might call the police. Good. Her jaw set in a way that reminded me of her mother. Let her. Let Ryan show up. Let Vincent try to stop us. Every second will be recorded. They can't make us disappear if everyone's watching. I looked at my daughter, brave enough to walk back into danger for proof, exhausted but unbroken. Your mother would be proud, I said quietly. Emma's eyes filled, but she smiled. She'd probably say we're both crazy. She'd be right. I left cash on the table, enough to cover coffee, and a generous tip for Nancy, whose offhand advice had sparked this plan. Let's go be crazy. Back in the truck, Emma finalized the setup, testing signal strength, ensuring backups were recording. When you start, just talk. Tell them who you are, what happened. Show the evidence. I'll record on my phone too, and push the stream everywhere. My finger hovered over the Go Live button. Ready, she asked. I thought about Lauren, Kayla, Nicole, about Amanda's scar, about Emma's name on a spreadsheet with a dollar amount beside it. I pressed the button. The viewer count jumped from 0 to 10, 50, 200. Our faces appeared on screen, framed by the dim interior of the truck. My name is Bob Blake, I said, voice steadier than I felt. 3 weeks ago, my daughter Emma married a man named Ryan Mitchell. What we didn't know is that he's done this before. Tonight we're going to show you proof. If anything happens to us, you're all witnesses. 500 viewers, 800. Comments flooded in. What? Share this, call the police recording. Is this real? Emma met my eyes. I saw her mother's courage there. We were committed now. No turning back. Driving back to the building we'd barely escaped felt like insanity. But with 5,000 people watching our live stream, with comments flooding in, urging us to stay safe, and we're calling 911. And share this. For the first time since this nightmare began, we weren't alone. The viewer count climbed as I drove. 8,000. 10,000. Emma monitored her phone's second screen, watching shares multiply across platforms. I kept my phone mounted on the dashboard camera facing me. We're going back, I said to the lens, to the thousands of strangers who'd become our witnesses. Diana Mitchell works on the 4th floor of the City Records building. She's forged documents for years, helping her son Ryan Mitchell end women's lives, and steal their money. The comments scrolled past faster than I could read. "This is insane! Someone screen record this. Calling Seattle PD now. Share, share, share." 12,000 viewers. We pulled up in front of the building. Lights blazed on the fourth floor. Diana was still there, probably destroying evidence after Ryan's panicked call about our break-in. "Show them the evidence," I said to Emma. She held up her phone to my camera, cycling through the photos we'd taken. Lauren King's forged marriage certificate, Kayla Roberts' falsified death report, Nicole Turner's manipulated property transfers. Each document appeared on screen for millions of pixels to capture and preserve. We entered through the main entrance this time. No sneaking, no shadows. This was public. Carl stood behind his security desk, his face registering shock as we walked in. "Mr. Blake, you can't..." I turned my camera toward him. "This is Carl, building security. Carl, 12,000 people are watching right now. We're going up to the fourth floor." Carl's eyes went to the phone, to the little red recording indicator to my face. I saw the calculation happen in real time, physically stopping us while thousands watched, versus letting us pass and claiming he'd been overwhelmed. He stepped aside. The elevator ride up felt eternal. Emma read comments aloud, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "Someone says the FBI is getting involved." Another person tagged the Seattle Police Department. "Local news stations are being notified." 15,000 viewers. The elevator chimed. Fourth floor. The corridor stretched ahead of us, fluorescent lights humming their familiar tune. Room 412's door stood ajar, light spilling into the hallway. From inside came the mechanical whir of a paper shredder working overtime. I pushed the door open, camera first. Diana Mitchell stood at her shredder, feeding documents into its mechanical teeth. Papers littered the floor around her, torn folders, scattered photographs, the desperate detritus of someone trying to erase their crimes. She looked up at the sound of our entrance. Her eyes found the camera, found the little red light. Her face went pale. "What are you doing?" Her voice was small, tight with fear. 15,000 people are watching this, Diana." I kept my voice calm, steady. "Want to tell them about Lauren King?" Get out." She tried for authority, but it came out shrill. "This is private property. You're trespassing. I'll call the police." "Please do." Emma stepped forward, her phone raised to show Diana the screen. 15,000 witnesses, all of them recording. My name was supposed to be next, wasn't it? Emma Blake. "Target number 4. Diana's eyes darted between us, the cameras, the door. Trapped. "Kayla Roberts." Emma continued, her voice hard. "Nicole Turner." "Should I keep going?" Diana lunged for my phone. I stepped back, keeping the camera steady as she stumbled forward. "You can't do this." True panic now, her composure shredding as fast as the papers she'd been destroying. "You don't understand what you're..." "To everyone watching," I said, addressing the camera, the thousands of faces I couldn't see but knew were there. "Diana Mitchell has been forging government documents for years. Her son Ryan Mitchell has ended 3 women's lives over the past decade. We have evidence, marriage certificates, death records, property transfers, all of it falsified. It's backed up in multiple cloud locations." "Diana." I turned to face her directly. "It's over." She was shaking now, actually. Shaking, her carefully maintained facade crumbling. "You don't understand. Vincent Shaw will..." She stopped. Her eyes went wide, fixed on something behind me. I heard them then. Footsteps in the corridor. Not Carl's uncertain shuffle. Not Ryan's angry rush. These were measured, confident, unhurried. The footsteps of someone who controlled situations rather than reacting to them. A voice I recognized, Henry Foster's voice, but stripped of its elderly tremor, deeper and stronger, spoke from the doorway. "Yes, Diana, please do tell them about Vincent Shaw." I turned, keeping my camera steady. 18,000 viewers now. 18,000 witnesses. The man in the doorway looked like the elderly stranger who'd pressed a warning note into my hand at that restaurant 3 weeks ago. But the way he stood, the way he moved, the cold calculation in his eyes, this wasn't a frightened old man trying to save lives. This was the predator who'd taught Ryan Mitchell everything he knew. "Hello, Bob." Vincent Shaw dropped all pretense, his voice smooth and professional. His eyes found the camera, assessed the little red light, the viewer count visible on my screen. "I trust we have an audience." Behind me, Diana made a small, strangled sound. 18,000 and climbing. Emma said, her voice steadier than mine would have been. Vincent smiled, not the warm smile of Henry Foster, but something colder, more calculating. He stepped fully into the room, and I saw he wasn't alone. 2 men followed him, their suits expensive, their faces impassive. Not muscle exactly. More like attorneys or accountants. The kind of people who made problems disappear with paperwork rather than violence. Excellent. Vincent's eyes swept the room, Diana frozen by her shredder, Emma with her backup camera, me with my live stream. "Then I suppose it's time we all had an honest conversation." He looked directly into my camera, into the eyes of 18,000 strangers, and smiled. "My name is Vincent Shaw, and I believe Diana and I have quite a story to tell you." Vincent Shaw just walked into the room with 18,000 people watching. What happens next will shock you. But before we continue, drop a comment right now with the number 1 if you're still here with me, or type "justice" if you think he's about to get what he deserves. I need to know you're still listening. And a quick note, the story ahead contains some dramatized elements for educational purposes. If that's not for you, feel free to stop here. No judgment. But if you're ready to see how this ends, let's get back to what Vincent said next. The transformation was complete. Gone was the frightened old man who'd pressed that folded paper into my hand at the restaurant. In his place stood the predator who'd hunted in Seattle for 15 years. Vincent Shaw walked into Diana's office with 3 men flanking him. Cole, Jake, and Nick, all in dark suits that screamed expensive attorney or high-level accountant. Not muscle. Something worse. The kind of people who made problems disappear with paperwork. I kept my camera pointed at Vincent's face. 20,000 people are watching Vincent. Say hello. He glanced at my phone, registered the viewer count, frowned slightly, but his confidence never wavered. That was his mistake. He didn't understand what 20,000 witnesses meant in the age of digital permanence. A slight smile. "Impressive, Bob. But you're still thinking too small." Diana started to speak. "Vincent, what are you—" "Quiet, Diana." He didn't even look at her. "Your amateur operation is over." He turned his attention back to me, to the camera, to the audience he still didn't fully comprehend. "You played your part perfectly, Bob. The angry father, desperate to save his daughter. I gave you just enough information to tear Diana apart. The address, the victims' names, the pattern. Everything you needed to destroy her credibility and operations. You used us," Emma said, her voice tight. "So, of course I did." Vincent's tone suggested this should be obvious. Diana's sloppiness was attracting federal attention. Bad for my business. I needed her gone, but it had to be clean. No connection to me. And then Bob Blake appeared, construction worker, no criminal record, acting purely from paternal love. Perfect. 25,000 viewers. The number kept climbing. You're confessing," I said quietly, "in front of 25,000 people." Vincent's laugh was genuinely amused. "Confessing, no, Bob. I'm explaining. There's a difference." He walked casually to Diana's desk, picked up one of the folders she'd been trying to shred. "You see, I've been running organized operations in Seattle for 15 years. Tech executives, federal contractors, real money, not Diana's petty widow-killing scheme." He dropped the folder back on the desk with contempt. Diana here ended 4 women's lives for less than $1 million total. Crude. Obvious. The kind of sloppy work that draws attention. He smiled at the camera. My operations are cleaner, larger scale, more sophisticated. I average 2 to 3 million per year, and the FBI doesn't even know I exist. She was everyone hearing this, I said to the camera, to the thousands I couldn't see. Vincent Shaw just admitted to running organized crime for 15 years. Vincent waved a dismissive hand. And what will they do? Bob, call the police. He laughed. I have connections throughout the Seattle Police Department, city government, state agencies. Do you think I've operated this long without insurance, without protection? 30,000 viewers. Diana made a sound, not quite a laugh, more like a bark of bitter amusement. Vincent's eyes snapped to her. You have something to say, Diana. Huh, you arrogant fool. Her voice was quiet but sharp as broken glass. You think Bob was the only one gathering evidence? I've been compiling files on you for 2 years. Bank accounts, property holdings, names of your other associates. An insurance package, Vincent. To make sure you couldn't dispose of me the way you've disposed of others. She pointed at my phone. Everything you just said, everything you just admitted, it's being recorded. By 30,000 people. For the first time, Vincent's confidence flickered. His eyes went to my phone, really looked at it this time, at the viewer count displayed at the top of the screen. 32,847 viewers. His face changed. What? Live stream. Emma said, her voice steady. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all simultaneously. Every word you've said has been broadcast live. 32,000 people heard you admit to 15 years of organized crime. 32,000 people saw your face. 32,000 witnesses who've probably been recording on their own devices. Vincent's mask shattered. The smooth professional vanished, replaced by something raw and desperate. Turn that off. Now! He lunged toward me, hand reaching for my phone. Cole and Jake moved forward, flanking him. I stepped back, keeping the camera steady, keeping Vincent's face in frame. 35,000 witnesses, I said quietly. And you just confessed to everything. Vincent's face cycled through emotions faster than I could track: confidence, to anger, to calculation, to something that looked almost like fear. You, he started. Then we all heard it. Sirens. Not just one or two. Many. Growing louder, converging from multiple directions. Cole's hand went to Vincent's arm. Boss, we need to go. Right now. But Emma was at the window. Too late, she said, and there was something like awe in her voice. Dad, come look at this. I moved to join her, camera still recording, still pointed at Vincent's increasingly pale face. The street 4 floors below was lit up like daylight. Red and blue lights strobed from what looked like a dozen vehicles, Seattle PD King County Sheriff cars, with federal plates I recognized from my years working government contracts. 35,000 people, Emma murmured. How many do you think called 911? All of them, I said. More sirens joined the chorus. A helicopter's searchlight swept across the building's facade. On my phone screen, the comments were a flood. Police are there. FBI TOO. He can't run. We're all witnesses. Vincent stood frozen, watching his empire collapse in real time. 15 years of careful operation, of maintained connections, of controlled violence. All of it undone in 5 minutes of overconfident confession to an audience he'd fatally underestimated. One, you did this, he said to me, and his voice was hollow. You actually did this. No, I said, keeping the camera steady on his face. You did this. I just made sure everyone could see. Below, I heard the main entrance doors slam open. Footsteps in the stairwell, many footsteps organized and purposeful. The tactical teams were coming. For 15 years, Vincent Shaw had hidden behind layers of intermediaries and corrupt officials. 5 minutes of arrogance on camera destroyed it all. He stared at my phone at the viewer count, still climbing 38,293. His face had gone from confident to calculating to something approaching horror as the magnitude of his mistake finally registered. I kept the camera steady, kept narrating for the stream. To everyone watching, Vincent Shaw just admitted to running organized crime in Seattle for 15 years. Diana Mitchell forged government records and helped her son Ryan Mitchell end women's lives. All evidence is backed up in multiple secure locations. The comments flooded past. FBI has been called. Recorded everything. Sharing everywhere. Vincent's eyes snapped to Cole. Get that phone. Cole moved forward, but I was already backing toward the door, camera still on them. Emma stayed beside me. You touch us. Emma said, her voice steady. 40,000 people will see. Jake and Nick exchanged glances, neither moving. Smart enough to recognize a no-win situation. Diana started laughing high and bitter. We're all finished. All of us. Shut up, Diana, Vincent snapped. 15 years, Vincent. Diana's laugh turned dark. 15 years you stayed hidden. 5 minutes and you destroyed yourself. The sirens were directly outside now. Through the window, the street blazed with red and blue strobes from 24 vehicles. Car doors slammed. Radio chatter echoed. The organized chaos of a major police response. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairwell, many of them moving fast but coordinated. Vincent's control cracked. This isn't over. I have lawyers' connections. You had connections, I said quietly. Now you have 50,000 witnesses. The door burst open. Seattle police hands where we can see them. Officer Johnson led the tactical team through the door, Sergeant Cooper behind him. More officers poured in, securing the room with practiced efficiency. Vincent Shaw, Sergeant Cooper's voice carried authority. Vincent's face cycled through rage, defeat, calculation, before settling into cold resignation. He slowly raised his hands. Cole, Jake, and Nick were smarter. Their hands went up immediately. Diana raised hers too, but she was smiling, a dark, satisfied smile. Bob Blake, Emma Blake. Officer Johnson found us by the window. That's us, I said. Still live streaming, 53,000 people watching. Johnson nodded. We've been getting hundreds of calls. FBI's on their way. Sergeant Cooper moved to Vincent, pulling out handcuffs. Vincent Shaw, Diana Mitchell. You're under arrest for conspiracy extortion accessory to multiple counts. He continued reading rights while the tactical team cuffed Vincent, then Diana, then Cole. Jake and Nick, I kept filming. Everyone watching arrests are being made. Vincent Shaw, Diana Mitchell, and 3 associates, Cole, Jake, and Nick, are in custody. The Mr. Blake. Officer Johnson said, other individuals involved. Ryan Mitchell, I said immediately. Diana's son, his apartment. I provided the address, watching Johnson relay it into his radio. Units already en route. Emma sagged against me, tension finally breaking. Dad, is it really over? Vincent Shaw, being led past us in handcuffs, stopped. Looked directly at me. Then at my phone, still streaming to 58,000 witnesses. Oh, you think you won? His voice was quiet, more dangerous than rage. You just made yourself a target for everyone who worked for me. Everyone whose operations you've exposed. Everyone who has more to lose than I do. Sergeant Cooper pulled him forward. Keep moving, Shaw. But the words hung like smoke. Officer Johnson stepped closer. Mr. Blake, we need you and your daughter to come with us for statements, evidence, and... He glanced at my phone at the 60,000 viewers now watching. We need to ensure you're both protected. Shaw's organization is larger than these arrests. Until we round up everyone connected to him, you're both at risk. I looked at Emma, saw exhaustion mixed with fear. Looked at Vincent being led away, his men following in handcuffs. Looked at Diana still wearing that dark smile. The stream was still live. 60,000 people watching. Comments flooding in, asking if we were safe sharing the video to their own feeds. I'd wanted witnesses to protect us. I'd gotten an army. But Vincent was right. We'd exposed his entire operation on a live stream that would never disappear, recorded by thousands of devices probably already archived by news agencies. Every person in Shaw's organization now knew our faces, our names. "We'll come with you," I said to Officer Johnson, then to the camera. "We're safe. The police have us. Thank you all for watching, for calling, for being witnesses." Before I could end the stream, Officer Johnson's radio crackled. "At all units, we have eyes on Ryan Mitchell. Subject attempting to flee. In pursuit." Emma's breath caught. Vincent, halfway to the door, stopped and looked back at us one final time. His expression wasn't anger anymore. It was something colder, a promise. The interrogation room at Seattle Police Department looked nothing like television. Just harsh fluorescent lights, weak coffee, and Detective Walsh asking the same question in slightly different ways to make sure our story never shifted. "Start from the beginning," Walsh said again, sharp eyes fixed on me. Mid-40s, calm, the kind of man who'd heard every lie and truth the city could produce. The restaurant. So we told it again. The warning from the old man who wasn't old. The address that led to Henry Foster, who was really Vincent Shaw. Amanda Foster, the survivor, presumed dead. Diana Mitchell's office and the files documenting years of fraud and worse. Ryan's pattern. The live stream that captured Vincent's confession. Walsh listened, taking notes, face unreadable. When we finished, he leaned back. "The live stream was genius," he said. "Reckless, but genius. 60,000 witnesses means Shaw's lawyers can't spin this. No coercion arguments. No misunderstanding. It's all recorded." He turned his laptop toward us. The video had already crossed 2 million views and was climbing. News outlets were reposting it. Legal analysts were dissecting it in real time. FBI's involved. Walsh continued. District attorneys drafting charges. Conspiracy, extortion, fraud, accessory to murder. Diana Mitchell's facing similar counts, plus forgery of government documents. He paused. We picked up Ryan Mitchell at 2:47 a.m. He was packing to run. Emma let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. "He's charged with 3 counts of murder and conspiracy," Walsh said. Diana's files gave us everything. Dates, methods, financial trails. Lauren King, Kayla Roberts, Nicole Turner. Their families will finally have answers. Another detective entered with an evidence log. Photos, databases, documents secured. Chain of custody documented. Walsh nodded. "You two did dangerous work. Probably traumatic. But good." "Amanda," I asked. "She's here, giving her statement. She asked to see you." 20 minutes later, Amanda stepped into the room. Her eyes were red but steady. "You did it," she said softly. Emma stood and hugged her. 2 survivors, I realized. Both had faced Ryan and lived. Both had chosen to fight. "Lauren, Kayla, Nicole," Amanda whispered. "They'll finally have justice." Walsh addressed her gently. "Witness Protection Program is offering placement if you want it. Shaw's network is large. We're still identifying names, but we're dismantling it quickly." By 4 a.m., Walsh updated us 7 more arrests tied to Vincent Shaw. Names from Diana's files, associates identified through financial trails. A 15-year empire collapsing in hours. By 5 a.m., FBI agents were seizing Diana's downtown office and raiding properties Vincent had maintained under different identities, including the house we'd visited. "You can go home," Walsh said at last. "We'll assign officers to watch your place for a few days." Shaw made threats. We take those seriously. We stepped outside as dawn broke over Seattle. The sky shifted from black to deep blue. The city resumed its routine, unaware how much had changed. News vans lined the street. Reporters surged forward. Mr. Blake, Emma, how did you know to live stream? Were you afraid? What do you want people to know? Officers formed a corridor and escorted us to my truck. We said nothing. The video spoke loudly enough. Inside, Emma leaned against the passenger door. Dad, she asked quietly, is it really over? I thought about Vincent's threats, about others in his network who might still resent us. But I also thought about 60,000 live witnesses, about millions more who had watched afterward, about federal agents and prosecutors now holding airtight evidence. Yes, I said, it's over. You're safe. She closed her eyes and fell asleep within minutes. My phone buzzed non-stop as I drove through quiet streets, messages from old friends, former clients, men I'd worked construction with decades ago. All had seen the stream or the news. One message stood out. From Amanda. Thank you for believing, for fighting, for not giving up. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. I didn't know how to answer, so I saved it. By the time we pulled into our driveway, the sun was fully up. Emma woke as I cut the engine, disoriented for a moment before memory returned. We're home, I said. We walked inside. The house looked the same. The furniture Sarah had chosen, the photos lining the walls, the kitchen table where I'd built so many things over the years. Yet everything felt different. 3 weeks ago, Emma had been a newlywed, beginning what she thought was a happy life. Now she was a survivor, someone who had faced a predator and lived. I had learned something about fatherhood. Protecting your child doesn't always mean shielding them from danger. Sometimes it means trusting them to stand beside you in the fight. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Seattle crime boss confesses live viral stream topples criminal empire. 6 million views. 60,000 witnesses had become 6 million. By tomorrow, maybe 10. By next week, who knew? Justice, it turned out, needed an audience. A week later, sitting in my living room with morning coffee, I watched the news coverage of Vincent Shaw's arraignment. Strange to see this man, the architect of so much pain, in an orange jumpsuit, facing life in prison. The nightmare was over, but the lessons, those would last forever. Emma came by that morning. She looked stronger, the haunted look in her eyes beginning to fade. We talked about the red flags I'd almost ignored. Ryan had handled all the paperwork. I should have asked why he needed to control everything, I said. Everything moved too fast. 3 weeks from meeting to marriage. I wanted you happy so badly I ignored my instincts, the excessive charm. Perfect people don't exist. I should have wondered what he was hiding. Emma squeezed my hand. Dad, you saved my life. You trusted your gut when it really mattered. I almost didn't. That's what scares me. She leaned her head on my shoulder the way she used to when she was little. But you did. And now I know whenever I face something scary, I don't have to face it alone. I looked at my daughter, this survivor who'd walked through fire and came out stronger. Neither do I, sweetheart. Neither do I. And to you listening to this story, remember this. I'm just a construction worker who spent 28 years building houses. I never thought I'd be the kind of father who'd break into government buildings or live stream a confrontation with criminals. But when your child's life is on the line, you discover strength you didn't know you had. Here's what this family story taught me. Trust your instincts. That uncomfortable feeling about your daughter's new boyfriend. That nagging doubt about how fast things are moving. God gave us those instincts for a reason. I almost ignored mine because I wanted Emma happy. I almost lost her because of it. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're desperate to act. The red flags are always there, controlling behavior, isolation from family decisions that move too fast. See them early. Speak up early. This dad revenge story isn't really about revenge at all. It's about protection. It's about refusing to let evil hide in shadows. When I started that live stream, I wasn't thinking about getting even with Vincent Shaw or Ryan Mitchell. I was thinking about the 60,000 witnesses who could keep my daughter safe when I couldn't. You know what surprised me most? The community response. 60,000 strangers became our army. In this age where everyone says technology divides us, it was technology that saved us. That live stream, that simple act of turning on a camera, made all the difference. I believe every family story like ours needs witnesses, not just for protection, but for accountability. The system failed Lauren King, Kayla Roberts, and Nicole Turner because their stories stayed private. When we made ours, public justice had no choice but to respond. Some people asked me afterward, "Weren't you scared?" Of course I was terrified, but I was more scared of doing nothing. More scared of being the father who lost his daughter because he stayed silent. This dad revenge wasn't mine alone. It belonged to everyone who watched, who called 911, who shared the stream, who refused to look away. That's the power we have now. We're not alone anymore. If you're a parent watching someone you love, with someone who doesn't feel right, trust that feeling. Have the hard conversation. Be the overprotective parent if you need to be. I'd rather Emma be annoyed with me for asking questions than be another name in Diana Mitchell's files. If you're in a relationship that's moving too fast, that's isolating you from family, that's giving you that sick feeling in your stomach, please listen to that voice. You're not being paranoid. You're not overreacting. Your instincts are trying to save your life. And if you know someone in danger, remember what this family story showed us. Shine a light. Make noise. Get witnesses. Evil relies on silence and shadows. Don't give it either. I thank God every day that I listen to that old man's warning in the restaurant. I thank him for 60,000 strangers who became witnesses. And I thank him that Emma is still here, still fighting, still healing. Your instincts exist for a reason. Use them. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. More stories like this need to be told, stories that might save lives. Leave a comment sharing your own experience with trusting your instincts, or tag someone who needs to hear this message. And please share this video. Somewhere out there, another father might need the courage to act. Another daughter might need to know she's not alone. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Your time and attention matter. A word of caution, the stories on this channel contain some fictional elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. We respect your choice, because maybe, just maybe, our dad revenge story, our fight for justice, can help save someone else's family.